blood-based product imported from Italy into the baits, deer won't eat it either. That doesn't work either. So, regardless of what certain people might say, what Forest and Bird might say, what Doc might say, what Maggie Barry, or as she's known around Parliament, the Orange Ruffy, might say, although just of late people have been referring to her as Rusty Myrtle. Regardless of what they might say, sodium monoferroacetate is a class 1 deadly poison, according to the World Health Organisation. It is one of the 10 most toxic substances known to man. Forest and Bird claims that 1080 breaks down into salt and vinegar. 1080 sodium monoferroacetate does not contain a chlorine ion. It cannot form salt. It is chemically impossible for that substance to break down into vinegar. It is an absolute lie. Forest and Bird, well, they used to come and see me in Parliament. They don't anymore. I'm not their favourite character. But organisations such as that, who promote the use of 1080, because they claim that it saves more than it kills, it's a necessary evil, we have to do it, there's no alternative, they are essentially the problem. Because you good people here, you know there is an issue, and you know what the issue is. The great majority of New Zealand doesn't. The great majority of New Zealand hear about 1080 through the TV, and they believe the official line as they're told it. Probably 9 out of 10 New Zealanders accept what they're told, that this 1080 stuff is, as the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment put it, something that we need to be using more of. They don't think about it, it's not something that touches their lives, or it hasn't yet. They may find, many more of them may find, in the reasonably near future, that actually it has touched their lives. Because one of the things that we're finding out about 1080 through research that's going on, mostly overseas, is the sublethal effects of it that have not been documented. There's only been one human toxicology study done on 1080, and that's not one that we can refer to very much because it was done by Saddam Hussein's regime, and as soon as you start talking about that, you lump in with the conspiracy nutters. But what we do know about the sublethal effects of sodium monoferroacetate is that it causes animals to abort. It causes increases in miscarriage rates, anything up to 2,000%. And a few years ago, 2 years ago, the Auckland Council did a 1080 drop over the Hunua Ranges, which contains 2 of Auckland's 4 reservoir dams. I went to see Water Care Services just prior to that. They were up in arms about it, but being a council organisation, they couldn't say anything. They were dead against having 1080 dropped in their catchment. We've now asked for the miscarriage rate figures for Auckland for the 3 years prior to that drop and the 2 years since it. And I suspect when we get them back, there'll either be big bits blanked out or a massive spike shown. And certain people will have to be answerable to that. The medical officer of health that signed off on that drop. And a prominent politician in this country, who I won't name, although somebody else has, who 20-something years ago commissioned and was given a report on the sublethal effects of 1080 on pregnant mothers. That will make very interesting reading when those two things get put together. When that report comes out, and that very prominent politician, very prominent politician, has to start explaining why, having known about it for more than 20 years, he's continued to allow it to be used. So look, folks, I don't want to make this political. But I do have to acknowledge the Ban 1080 people. They've done a marvellous job all around the country. I keep bumping into reprobates like Clyde Graff and Jim Hilton at various rallies, and good on them. And I do have to say, I passed a couple of Green Party signs when I was driving up here from Auckland Airport this morning. The Green Party supports 1080. They're one of the organisations that think, well, you know, we don't particularly like it, but it's a necessary evil. That's absolute rubbish. You either support it or you don't. You can't say you do it reluctantly. That's like saying you're a little bit pregnant. That doesn't happen either. So, at the moment, in this country, there are 2 registered parties that are opposed to 1080. One is the Ban 1080 party, the other one is New Zealand First. We are going to be the government after the 23rd of September this year. And we will end the use of 1080 in New Zealand. One of the excuses that's given for the use of 1080 is that so much of this country is inaccessible. You can't get to it. You can't trap the pests, you can't shoot them, it's too hard to get to. That's rubbish. Since the invention of the helicopter, no part of New Zealand is inaccessible. And the use of this poison is based on, supposedly, there being a problem with native species being threatened and predators threatening them out in these places that are inaccessible. Which begs the question, if these places are so inaccessible that you can't get into them, how do you know what's there? The fact of the matter is they've never done the population surveys. They've never been out in these back blocks that get helicopter dumped with 1080 to count the native species and to count the predators. They've just said, well, they must be out there, we can't get there any other way, let's do it. So the first thing that we're going to do is call a halt to airdrops, and we're going to do those surveys. It will take time, it will take money. I'm imagining it will take around 3 or 4 years to do a survey properly, because we have to account for seasonal variations in population. During that 3 or 4 year hiatus, we're going to be ramping up trapping, we're going to be ramping up ground control operations. I've been to any number of protest rallies as well, like this one. It's a bit strange actually, most people go from being a protest to being a politician. I seem to be going the other way. But going to trade shows and so forth, A&P shows, field days, and talking to the people who do ground control. And they all tell us, there's nowhere they can't go. Some places are a bit gnarlier to get into, takes a bit longer, costs a bit more. We accept that. We accept that doing ground control and trapping is going to cost more than flying around in helicopters. We're prepared to accept that extra cost, because the use of 1080 is unacceptable at any price. So, during that period where there are no drops going on, we're doing the surveys, we're ramping up the use of trapping, we are training people in trapping, and we are putting money into research for other methods and alternative compounds, and there are alternative compounds. If at the end of that time we do discover that yes, we do need to drop something from the air, we'll have PAPP or cholecalciferol ready to go. The PAPP, no poison is nice. I don't like poison. There are some times when it's necessary. Wasps would be a good example. I'm not fond of wasps. PAPP can be chelated to a particular amino acid, which makes it entirely species specific. It's reasonably quick and reasonably humane. Cholecalciferol is not particularly humane, no poison is, but at the doses necessary to kill rats and stoats and possums, it won't kill dogs, it won't kill birds, most importantly it won't kill deer. And I've been around this in the head more times than I could count in the last 4 years, and I look at the 1080 industry, and actually that whole industry could simply swap 1080 for another poison and use that instead, and the rest of its gravy train infrastructure would stay in place. But none of the alternatives will kill deer. And I'm convinced that that's the unspoken agenda. They want to wipe deer out of the bush. We have said for a while now that introduced species that were once introduced, like deer and pigs, goats, wapiti, tahr, chamois, they're endemic now. They're naturalised. They're part of New Zealand's wildlife. They live here, there's a place for them. And we, mankind, the apex predator, through sustainable hunting, are the best way of controlling them. So I've come around in a full circle back to supporting hunters, which is where I started off. But in the meantime, in between those times, I've discovered a great deal that I didn't know about 1080. I've unlearned a lot of things that I grew up knowing. I grew up knowing that the possum was a pest. I now know that the possum is a resource. The possum fur industry in this country employs about 1,500 people directly, and it generates about $140 million worth of revenue. About 85% of that comes from the retail sale of garments to overseas tourists. That's more than $100 million worth of foreign exchange coming in to buy possum fur. We have trappers telling us that they've applied for permission to trap certain blocks, and DOC have said, no, we're going to poison it. And these are easy blocks to get into. We've got pet food manufacturers who say they've got unfilled orders from Asia for possum meat pet food. They can't fill them because it has to be from poison-free areas. Possum is a resource going to waste. Possum is a unique animal. Trichoceros vulpecula is one of 2 animals in the world that has a hollow fibre fur. The other one's the polar bear. That's why possum fur is so good as an insulator. It's one of the best furs for wearing that there possibly is. The global fur industry is worth $40 billion, and the New Zealand possum is the only ethical, humane source of that fur. And we're poisoning it. When we could have people out there trapping, earning a good living, clean living out in the bush, making money for this country, generating wealth, and supporting the reputation that in a lot of cases we don't actually deserve as a country, this clean green thing. If the story starts to get out to some of our major tourist markets, for example, that we're dropping this poison all over the place, that could have an enormous negative impact on this country's economy, because tourism is now our biggest foreign exchange earner. It's bigger than dairy. I'm sure Clyde will touch on this when he speaks. And Clyde Graff, I have to acknowledge Clyde, is one of the greatest experts that this country has on this particular subject, and one of the unsung heroes. He has been a force for education and a force for change over many years. It's cost him a bit personally, as I guess it's cost a few other people, but he stuck at it, like all the good stalwarts who keep fighting the good fight. I'm not going to go on and on, but I want to say again, thank you all for turning out. Thank you for your welcome. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your faith. And I'll say one thing more. If we all stick together and we keep up at this, we will win. Thank you.
You want your lunchbox, eh, honey?
It's done.
No, it's Clyde Graff.
Baba, come here.
Come up and have a word. I'm pleased. Here's Wendy Pond, she's a powerhouse of energy, this little lady. Thank you.
Excuse me interrupting proceedings, but it's a rare opportunity to present to Richard Prosser the letters that all you good people have written from iwi, from hapu, from community groups, including ecological groups. Richard, please present our letters in Parliament and say that we beg you to restore democratic process so that our desire for a clean environment that we have so eloquently expressed will be acknowledged by government.
Sir, young man, I should do so with pride.
Thank you, Wendy. Clyde, you're around?
Yes, thanks. Yep. Hello everyone, Clyde Graff.